Cross River State House of Assembly has passed the Local Government Amendment Bill 2025 following deliberations and a report from its Joint Committee on Local Government, Chieftaincy Affairs, Rural Development, Judiciary and other relevant areas. Key changes in the law include increasing local government departments from 7 to 12, revising funding allocations to key MDAs and assigning new responsibilities such as peace and conflict resolution to council vice chairman. It also mandates federal character in council appointments and upgrades heads of local government administrations to enjoy the status of permanent secretaries. Further amendments provide financial backing for the Auditor General for local government, strengthen council secretaries and clerks with additional staff, and establish statutory appointments including ward relations officers and special assistants. Well, activist and lawyer Malachy Ugummadu joins us now to discuss this further. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Pleasure to be here.
So what are your thoughts, on this amendment? How does it align with the Supreme Court's interpretation of local government autonomy?
My take is that the Supreme Court judgment is clear and it is succinct. What is not clear is whether the state government, this time around Cross River State government, as many have also argued, Anambra State, are making any effort intentionally or by implication to circumvent the Supreme Court judgment. And in between those two positions is what I think is the issue at the moment. For me, what the Supreme Court did with the local government case that was filed by the Attorney General of the Federation was to bring to a very clear, unambiguous position regarding the autonomy of local government, and with specific reference to their fiscal powers to have access to funds meant or standing to the credit of the local government. If the states are now gradually beginning to feel threatened, as we can see from this kind of laws that are oozing out from at least two states now, then, in my view, I think the National Assembly should take very proactive steps to amend the Constitution in a way that do not allow for these manipulations going on. Secondly, as an option, the Attorney General who initiated the case in the first place can approach the same Supreme Court and seek to deal with those portions of the Constitution that enables the state government to do what they are doing at the moment. But I think that by and large, the greater struggle lies with the local council areas in whose benefit this judgment has operated thus far. We cannot completely rely on the state houses of assembly that has the responsibility to check the excesses of the executive arm of government in the respective federating units. Otherwise, there are no better moments when the legislature at the state level ought to rise to the occasion and ensure that these kind of bills do not come to them in the first place, let alone approving them by way of legislation. Those are my initial reactions.
And what could be some of the legal implications of the state assemblies funding these oversight functions through the local government?
What has become clear is that in very many respects, the federating states are beginning to come to terms with the capacity of the local council to even go beyond them in terms of, implementing the dividends of democracy. And given the configuration of the Nigerian politics and looking towards next elections, one is beginning to hazard a guess along that of fright fear, anxiety, if you like, very uncomfortable situations. And what they therefore tend to do is to pass laws within the same tier of government that would take care of the powers that have been clearly allocated to the councils. And the idea is to get all of these things done before it is time for elections, just so that the powers they have lost, the control of the resources they have lost by that Supreme Court's judgment could, in many other ways, come back to them, either by an expanded access or control of the resources of the local government. You look at the creations of offices and agencies that will enable them at the state level still have minimal control over what operates at the local councils. All of this is to undermine what has happened. And I think that if that is already playing out, it is for those who conceived the idea in the first place, the Attorney General in particular, to now look at the way the law is being received. I'm talking about the judgment, which is now the case law regarding autonomy of local government, and see whether there are further steps to take. The National Assembly can also tighten the law around the provisions of the Constitution that makes it possible for what is playing out at the moment. And all of these are possible because, as it were, the total idea behind this reform, if you like, this judicial intervention, is to secure the philosophy of popular governance at that level of government. If the people who are the targets and objects of democracy are empowered in such a way that they could relate with the government closest to them and guarantee the development and progress that is possible by reason of the funding and autonomy, then any other step taken to undermine that should also be controlled. And that's my take.
Now, the bill proposes deductions, from sundry expenditures, including funding of the State House of Assembly oversight functions. How will these deductions impact the financial resources that are available to local governments in Cross River State? And of course, what are the potential consequences for service delivery? I
wish it is limited to that deduction. One would not have so much concerns. But the entire ramification of the reforms created with that bill is the one that gives us the concern. Don't forget, prior to this time, what the Attorney General did with respect to that case that came up to the Supreme Court in the case of Attorney General of Abia State and of the Federation and against the Attorney General of Abia State and all other Attorney General, was to checkmate, as it were, the capacity of the state through legislative instruments to have access to the funds of the local government, even at state level. And what the Supreme Court did was to clearly indicate that henceforth, that joint operation of that account, known as JAC, should stop. And therefore, it became evident that only the local government will have access and deal and control with their resources as far as their allocations are concerned. So if the state government is now, if you like, unwittingly beginning to create agencies to manage the same resources that must go directly to the local government, in my view, they are already taking steps to undermine the judgment of the Supreme Court. It therefore behoves the body of local government. I know they have argued through serious lobby, even within the state houses of assembly. Some ought to be sensitive to cry out because this was how we got into the mess in the first place. I am not oblivious of the fact that there could be tendencies of abuse even at the local level. I'm not oblivious of that. However, there is a bigger mischief sought to be checked. And that mischief had been identified, concerning the ambitions, the inordinate ambitions of most state governors regarding what it takes to sustain themselves in office and, vie for power. So if all of these are put in perspective, you will find that we just need to remain focused on the ball and ask the hard question: what is it in these whole permutations for the people of the local government? What is it for the Nigerian people? To what extent can we navigate all of these intrigues, and competing interests to be able to locate the interests of the people and find a way of staying on track as far as actualizing the interests of the people are concerned?
Yeah, very, very well put, because how can you ensure compliance within this whole situation? What kind of support do you think that the local governments need in order to facilitate the implementation of this?
The local government historically has been a very powerful and organized tier of government in this country. As a matter of fact, the way we practice our federalism clearly suggests that the Nigerian political arrangement in so many ways has elevated the local government as a tier of government. Ideally, in an ideal federal system, you will have the national body and then the federating unit. Whatever happens at the lower, but the fact that we have these structures embedded and clearly established under the Constitution, now having direct allocations, direct funding from federal allocations, and enjoying at different power the same, access like the other tiers of government, clearly shows that it is a peculiar kind of federalism. And I make the point that they can get organized. First of all, is to become very conscious of what is happening. It requires a fresh consciousness, that demands the capacity of the operators at that level to understand the intrigues and where the state governors are headed. We have two now. There is one in Anambra, there's Cross River now, and then be able to organize. They have a group, they have a body, and such developments must be of interest to them, with a view to critically understanding what is happening or about to happen, and then take steps. Nothing prevents them from contesting what is happening now in court. Nothing prevents them from contesting that. And at the end of the day, if they take a proactive steps in that direction, there are chances that the courts will remind them of what the Supreme Court has carefully laid as the basis of our federal system of government.
So before we let you go, does the current constitutional framework protect local government financial autonomy from state interference, or should we be looking at constitutional amendment? I
would say yes, that it does. In fact, I would say that beyond what the Constitution provides, the judiciary has intervened up to the Supreme Court, which is a court of first instance when the federal government and the state governments are disputing on any matter. The Supreme Court has taken full advantage of that particular case to make the clarifications and then define the constitutional provision so succinctly that there are no longer ambivalence around what should be and how it should be. What has become a bit convoluted now has to do with the manipulation of the state governments, in my view, and with profound respect, to undermine what the Supreme Court has clearly established as the basis of local government operations in the country. So my suggestions are there that the local governments, the Attorney General, And they're all stakeholders, you know, who clearly appreciate what has happened with the Supreme Court judgment, can ventilate their interest once again and see that these issues are resolved one way or the other.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Malachy Ugummadu.
A pleasure,
activist and
always.
lawyer.
Thank you very much.